A very pleasant good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Magandang umaga po, magandang tanghali, magandang hapon, magandang gabi. Wherever you're located and whatever your time zone is, welcome to Crossfire. And with me, as always, we have Itos Valdes and Paglinawan. This is Rita Gadi. This afternoon, we have this program titled G.I. Joe, Fact and Fiction. Why am I talking about G.I. Joe? Oh my goodness. This is a cartoon character, if we're going to call it that, but really an American action figure. He's supposed to be the strong man that would fight the evil forces, that will protect the weak and the and whatever it is, those that are being oppressed and so forth. And we have an image. And why is it that we chose this, or I chose it to be our title? Because when we speak of the United States of America, sinasabi nga colonial mentality kasi tayo, we want American goods, etc. Or we probably refer to the 45 years of America and they say that's the Hollywood era, which has contaminated us up to this day. But what exactly is our relationship with the United States of America? G.I. Joe. Yan, yan. If we go by the acronym of G.I. Joe, yung pala, I looked it over and it says here, it's the Global Integrated Joint Operating Entity. Ang haba, ano? But if you put it all together, it sounds like an American site. We have 5 of them already there installed. We have 4 forthcoming. And then we have, of course, just about the only connection we have that can strengthen whatever you speak of as far as foreign policy is concerned with America is a military defense treaty. But of course, we go all the way back. We go back to the time that the United States of America paid $20 million to Spain to buy us, the Philippine archipelago. So if we go back to the time, 1888, the Treaty of Paris, and we were not even part of it. And all the way in the progress of history, there was a time when we had the equal rights with Americans. Tidings McDuffie Law, Laurel Langley Treaty, etc. But then, of course, whether there was a law or not, I think to this day, if you look at it, we still do not have a strong trade agreement with the United States of America. And that's why we're back now to exactly what we're going to talk about. G.I. Joe, fact and fiction. So, Ado,
I think you missed something in the characterization of G.I. Joe. Our president actually is the G.I. Joe
oh my goodness.
because he is genuine Ilocano. And,
It is no coincidence that the GI thing actually also inhabits his name.
and
Anyway,
of
and
late,
and he's flying over to meet with the GI Joe in Washington.
and of late, he has conveniently positioned himself to be the poster boy of the Americans in the Southeast Asia.
But that's just about what happened to most of our presidents, hindi ba, Itos? I mean, from the very start, of course, nagkaroon tayo ng Commonwealth, meron daw Governor General, meron nilagay na Filipino na presidente dyan and all,
Right.
but lahat yan naging poster boy, poster girl.
Yeah.
There will be no American president, and there will no Filipino president
Right.
will win without American
Right.
go signal,
In
di ba?
the industrial era,
Oo.
which is after the turn of the century to after World War II,
Okay.
tapos yung America na tayo.
Yeah, oo.
Fully, and we couldn't live without America. We had really a special relationship
Yeah,
with America. I mean, but as it goes, America also has as they pick their leaders. Some leaders are okay, and some leaders are not, and that's where we still go. Right? So they have their interests here. Remember, we were under the Americans until 1946. We were supposed to be given independence by Roosevelt. He said he wanted to by 1932 or 33. 1936, and then there was war clouds already. And so they decided to postpone it and push it back. But true enough, 1946 we were given. But we also had to agree to certain trade conditions.
Yeah.
that making them the preferred trading partner and all. Now, kasama na yun yung buying all our sugar later on in the 50s, kaya lumaki na yung Negros and all of those things. So, there's no denying that our local oligarchy also benefited from the relationship of America, like any conquered nation, I guess, no? But there will be a point where you have to assert your own sovereignty under their own Declaration of Independence, invoking that, which they did to the British, right?
Yeah.
So we can also invoke that because that's the spirit. Our presidential system is the same as theirs. So we're really in their image.
Yeah.
So we can't deny it benefited us many years, but also kept us to them. Like now, of course,
Battles, as they say.
yes, we are like a territory without being said.
Yeah.
So this is where we are now, and we can discuss the BRICS and later on and the effect of that later on to us because we're tied to the dollar.
Exactly.
So, and ayaw nila tayong bitawan. Ayaw naman tayo magbitaw.
Bumitaw.
Oo, diba? Parang ibibitaw ba ako? Will I break up with my long-time partner?
Yeah.
What's the risk? So I'm
That's
sure
our
Ado can bring up a lot of these issues. No, we would react to that
That's
also.
our
But
that's our GI Joe.
that's
diba?
our GI Joe. Genuine issue.
Exactly.
Diba? So,
Genuine issue.
so Ado. So the title is what?
GI Joe, fact and fiction.
Fact and fiction. Yeah. So
Well, we are at the time when this president of ours, Marcos Jr., all of a sudden announces a plan to spend the last days of April to the first days of May in a visit to the United States of America. You know, every time Bongbong Marcos makes a move, I'm sounding like a cliche already because I always prefix my statement with by the wildest stretch of my imagination. I don't know really what he is doing. I really don't know why he has insisted on becoming the Secretary of Agriculture and ending up in the Publico survey the second worst cabinet member, next only to his pitbull, si Remulla, you know, who has engaged our justice system into trial by publicity. His first toy was the Bureau of Correctional
Bantag.
Bantag.
Mm.
And then now that the governor of Negros has been killed, the Teves brothers.
Yeah.
So together, they're in this kind of a mess. And when he announced that it would be best for the president to take over this cabinet position, I really bought into that because I know that the agriculture department is so saddled with so many problems, and that the political will that could be provided by the office of the president could be the missing link. However, when the targets were announced, they were not announcing anything that is already achievable by what you call the national production average. And so it's really good for nothing there. It's really not serving any purpose there. And because the emphasis is post-pandemic economic recovery, I also, by the widest stretch of my imagination, do not know. I don't know if you guys know what it's doing with our economy.
Okay, let's get back
So
to G.I. Joe.
I'm going now to the GI Joe
Yeah,
thing.
okay,
Right.
yes.
And so to cover up a lot of this mess that is happening, he turns to the military as an instrument of policy, you know. And he bumps into so many sensitivities. And in fact, I had a column recently because of the most recent Balikatan that definitely has already claimed away from Anwar Ibrahim of Malaysia, who used to be the poster boy of ASEAN when he was battling Muhammad Mahathir,
Mahathir.
because he had to use the liberal democracy position. But now that Anwar is prime minister, uh, here comes our own president, no? And it might be simplistic to say that he will be singing hallelujahs to Washington, D.C. on May 1st, but really, I do not believe, Rita and Itos, that this is not a part of a plan, and I don't know why he does not want to be transparent with the Filipino people. Something is rotten in
Denmark.
Malacanang. And there is this dalliance with the Americans going on that really makes him the G.I. Joe of today. No? By fiction and by fact.
So,
But-
yeah,
go ahead.
okay, it was, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to also comment. I think when we were, in Southeast Asia, we were known as the Amboys because of the turn of the centuries. We fell into America's possession or influence, and then even after World War II, among all the ASEAN nations, out in Asia, we were the American experiment.
Exactly.
As Roosevelt said, the Philippines is a prime example of American way of helping a country be independent. And I think there were pockets of that shining through in our history. Yes, there were those who wanted to take advantage of that and throw out, and that's the fact. But there was a time when our central bank governor, si Cuaderno, I think, right? Cuaderno, working with Salvador Ananeta.
Yeah.
They were the Roosevelt faction that wanted to build the country in along those lines, and they were defeated by the central bankers later on. Okay, but also now, never in our history at this point has there been an alternative to that American-led. I don't know. You call it maybe hegemony, right? They have the banking system. They control our money through the central banks, but now there is BRICS. So never in the time in human history or in the Philippine history do we have an option like to go to China,
Sure.
to talk to Russia, and that they're actually stronger
Yeah.
in terms
Now,
of
today, yes.
yes, building a monetary system, more viable global financial system, than the failing and disintegrating Western banking system by London and the US.
That's true.
Never has there been that time for us. So it's an opportune time to actually break free in our foreign policy.
Exactly,
And to Ado's point, why then
Are we not?
are we still trying hardest, knowing, lalo na when we have to say this, lalo na when the US President Biden is really, nobody answers his calls anymore. The world leaders don't answer him because they know that it's a sinking ship, it's
Exactly.
a Titanic. So they know that they're clueless, and yet we're hanging on. It's like we don't want to jump from the Titanic to the lifeboats offered by these nations that are not asking us to, not holding a gun to our head and asking, oh, we'll support you through bridges and infrastructure. Why don't we consider that? is confusing also on our part.
You know, it was
Yeah.
if Donald Trump was the Joker, Joe Biden is the joke.
The show.
So why are we taking him seriously?
Yes, correct.
After, especially after 30 years, when from 1986,
Mm.
the so-called EDSA revolution,
Mm.
came 30 years,
37. Mm.
30 years of
Excuse me.
five presidents from Cory the mother to Noy Noy the son,
Mm.
reversing perhaps everything, all the very basic and organic reforms that the former President Marcos Sr. had put in place.
You know, when we talk about this,
You know,
yeah.
we are in a state of horror.
Mm.
We should have been jumping on our feet
Yes,
because
correct.
Yeah.
the ground is so hot
Yeah.
that we could not step on it.
Right.
But instead, we seem to be, there is a respite of 6 years under Duterte, and Duterte has already mentioned so many things. You were hinting at a world that is turning multipolar,
Yes,
Correct.
yes,
huh?
exactly.
Away from the unipolar
Right.
America,
Yes.
and still we want to hang on. And the promise of continuity of the policies of Duterte is nowhere in sight right now.
Exactly.
And we are with the descending power, huh?
Yes,
The
correct.
descending power that has no moral ascendancy whatsoever
None.
to lead because of 20 years that it has spent 6.4 million,
Trillion,
trillion
yeah.
Mm.
In wars.
in wars
Mm.
from Iraq to
Afghanistan,
Afghanistan
to Syria,
to Syria,
to the South Africa,
Okay.
Africa, and all of
and
that.
now Ukraine.
Yeah, exactly.
The other side of this is China and Russia
Mm.
leading, as you call the BRICS,
Mm.
Brazil, Russia, India,
China,
China, and South
South
Africa,
35 other countries and more joining in. Yeah.
trying to weave a new kind of uh, multipolar system
Yes.
where everybody can find its own self under
Which actually
a
is
wide.
a new economic order.
It is a new economic.
It's a new economic
It is-
order, and we're still with G.I. Joe.
Yes, it is. It is the order as envisioned by the Bretton Woods
Yes.
system. So
Yes.
you had this to rebuild the world. Franklin Roosevelt led this, and
Mm.
because the dollar was the preeminent strongest currency by default, it became that. When they shifted to a floating exchange
yeah.
rate, the dollar suddenly ginamit nila to
To
go
control,
after
yeah,
this, to
yeah.
weaponize
Yeah,
this,
to
and
control.
that's where we are. So, but now you have these countries who are actually decoupling from the dollar. They're
Exactly.
getting out.
Mm.
And if you see the value of the dollar, it's sinking, and we're attached to it. We're not trying to resist it. We're trying to hang on dear life and see how far it will go. And then, we're more of a friend to America than America has been a friend to us.
Exactly. That's it. That's
I mean,
the fiction
that's the
that
whole
there
thing.
is.
So,
Precisely.
and it's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad because what America was founded on and what America stood for was really the Declaration of Independence of mankind
Mhm.
from that yoke. And yet now that it's turned into a sort of dying empire, instead of trying to help nations, it's using them for a loyalty check. And then now you think America, in a war situation, do you think an American soldier will take a bullet first, or he will ask the Filipino to go ahead?
That's
Right?
exactly it. You know,
That's
you were
it.
yeah, you were mentioning something about we were forgetting the past.
Mm.
When Junior's father began diplomatic relations with these two big countries, they were not yet as huge and as powerful as they are today, but already there was the vision. China, and then the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, right? That could have been, as Itos was saying, the opportunity to follow through with that.
Yes.
Because at that time,
Because
there
as
was
the
no,
Americans
yeah.
themselves say, there ought to be a better way.
Correct.
Di ba?
Agree.
Oh,
Yeah.
so ano nangyari? Ano nangyari,
Yung
Rita?
ama niya, his own father refused America to join
Hmm.
the war in Vietnam.
Yes.
At the height of his, at the height of his popularity
And-
at the time, bago pa lang first.
And
few
imagine,
months,
imagine what the moral courage it took, because there was no China, there was no
No,
BRICS
Russia,
at that time
exactly.
that he could turn to and say, help us
On
with our
his
economy.
own,
On his own, he
yeah.
knew that he had to have good relationships with these, even if America declared them the evil empire.
Precisely.
So he went to talk to Gaddafi, he
Yeah.
went to talk to because he knew his primary concern was the survival of the Philippines and its people. So he knew what he had to do. But he had to play nice with everybody.
Yeah, but he had the moral courage.
Yes.
At that time.
That's the key.
As you said, these countries were not yet as powerful then at the time, and yet
Yes.
he refused the most powerful country in the world, which is America. He was able to do it at that stage. Ano pa kaya ngayon?
Ano pa kaya
Bakit?
ngayon?
Yeah, bakit hindi? And what's happening is our country is offering anything that America wishes to have.
Yeah.
They're having all of these questions in the Senate, asking why there are additional sites, etc. and all. But if you really analyze what is there in the provisions, I think we've talked about this endlessly. They're talking about climate change. They're talking about disaster. They're talking about humanitarian assistance. Ang dami-dami yung provisions na yon. Pero dito sa sites, meron na ngayong pumapasok dyan
Right.
na military defense or defense
Yes, of course.
Pakita nga natin yung
So,
gorilla.
ano yon? Ang gagawin nila is, sabi nga nung isang senator nag-question, then why did they not position the sites where there are actually
I
disasters?
saw the same hearing. Yes,
Diba?
exactly.
So, maybe
Si
they
Sherwin,
should, yeah,
si Senator
that-
Sherwin.
Jaime
Yan.
Marcos was so pointed
Yes,
in citing Guian
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
because
yes.
the Americans built the biggest airport during
The Second World War.
at
Yeah.
the end of
Yes.
the Second World
Correct,
War
correct.
there.
They could have
And
positioned,
Samar Leyte is one of the most heartless hit
Yeah.
the eastern side of the country.
Yeah.
But instead of putting all these
sites.
sites, no, which they claim is for humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, or what they there. I have a cartoon there, no, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. No, they are putting lipstick to this monster, and they're emphasizing that EDCA is really modernization
No.
of the Philippine military. Okay, I'm willing to grant that to you. I'll give that to you.
We had an oil spill about a
Yeah.
month ago. When did America come?
But they are at the same time
that's a
guilty
disaster.
of mental dishonesty.
Mm.
This Charlie Galvez, Ed Año, and even the president is guilty of mental dishonesty because they're using the HADR, Hadir,
Yeah.
as the
The lipstick.
lipstick,
Correct. Yeah.
and they are only talking about the benefits to the Philippine bases, but really the U.S. bases is what would come out of it.
Right.
Because unlike, Rita, it was Bulgaria and Romania also have defense
Agreements.
agreements. Exacto, DCA, no?
Yeah.
But before the U.S. would preposition anything, before anything leaves the U.S., it must first have the permission of the Bulgarians and the Romanians. There is no such provision in our agreement.
Right.
And so when Marcos says we have no intention of having any foreign country running us around our own bases, I don't think he knows what he's talking about, because there will be no disclosure there will be no update. And he will be for the biggest surprise, just as Aguinaldo was surprised that the Americans were already in Fort Santiago.
Santiago.
So, ayan in the walled city sa Intramuros,
Yeah.
and in control of the situation. And with the withdrawal of the Americans from a treaty for intermediate use of weapons for from 500 to 5,000 kilometers. Why do they have to position? Ito yung hindi maintindihan ni Jaime Marcos eh. Why do they have to preposition two more bases right there in Cagayan? When the farthest point of the Philippines is 2,500 away from Taiwan. Still within the 5,000 kilometers, where even if the United States bases in General Santos, in General Santos in South Cotabato, they can still preposition offensive weapons.
Right.
And, I think
But
our president is not telling us the whole story.
Well,
here.
his story is actually, bakit kayo matatakot? Why fear? Because we're not going to war. We're not going to use these sites to declare war.
That's not our
Or,
choice.
apparently, that's exactly what he's trying to explain to us. Is that not enough
No,
explanation?
I'm saying it's not our choice whether we go to.
Ito ang resulta nung
So-
itong next cartoon. Pakita mo nga yung next. Yan. Wala na kasi ngayon. This
Conventional warfare.
Balikatan has raised so many eyebrows because this is, they have preposition. By the way, we're not only talking about war material and equipment. We're talking about troops. They have preposition 17,000 troops, which is double what they had in 2015. Double. This is for the first time, nag-project sila ng boots on the ground. But the real thing is, wala nang boots on the ground.
That's conventional warfare.
Wala na mga landing by General Homa sa Lingayen Gulf. No? Wala na mga landing katulad ng Normandy na mangyayari. Ayan mga kabansa, ang mangyayari sa susunod na gera. Kaya sa EDCA, patay ka.
But are you not assured by the fact that the president himself is the one assuring us? Why fear?
No.
You're not
Alam mo, Rita,
Yeah.
nung naglabas ng statement si Bongbong Marcos, naglabas din ng statement si Ambassador Wang Siliang, kasi every time Bongbong Marcos opens his mouth, nagkakaroon ng tremors sa Beijing.
Yeah.
Nininervyo sa mga tao, hindi dahil sa mga Amerikano, kung hindi dahil kay G.I. Joe.
Let me answer that with a question. If America decides to go to war, can we stop them? So when Bongbong says, "Di naman natin gagamitin," we don't have power either way to stop or to go. If America decides we're going to use the missiles that we position within those bases, do we have the power to tell America, no, you cannot? Do we have the Congress or our Senate to say, no, you can't, because that's against our Constitution?
But the president made a long narrative in
No, I
his
know.
speech regarding this, saying
And
that
I think he has to.
yeah.
I
that
think he has to say.
there's nothing that can happen in these sites without the knowledge of the Filipino commander of the armed forces of the
No, like I
Philippines.
said, if
Yeah.
America decides to go to war, can we stop them? Can we say, don't enter these bases? Can we physically, legally stop them? Can we? We cannot.
The answer to that question is what's bothering Zelensky right now.
You cannot, But like our crossfire last week,
Okay.
Rita, remember I said, the president has a chance to be rather than just play the middle ground and appease everybody. The president has a chance actually to step up and be a real statesman, not just for the Filipinos but for the whole region. And he can call in and say, "Look, we are not going to be used as fodder for war between both of you, and we cannot allow this to happen. Whatever your issues, and we stand on the position of peace." And the president can still do that now. Now, it's again, Ado. I don't want to look at Ado because he's laughing, so he's not going to do. But I'm saying
Not yet.
not yet. But he can.
Pupunta muna sa Taiwan.
Yeah, okay.
He's going to ask permission.
Oh, but then again,
He can do
since
that
there
now.
has been
Oh,
no
yes.
clarification as to the intent of meeting with Biden, we might yet get the surprise of our lives.
Of
We might-
course.
maybe he will tell Biden, "I don't want you to use those sites."
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
could still be
I,
possible.
Of course.
I
Yeah.
still have, I've been racking my brains
Yeah,
in
okay.
research, bumping into one think tank in the US to a think tank in Canada or Australia or anywhere else, trying to look for it. And the Slowly Institute talks about Biden when he summoned the ASEAN leaders in Washington, D.C. to a summit last May.
Mm.
And there are 5 takeaways that Lowly Institute provided us. And I think this is what Biden is all about. Number 1, the Lowly Institute, in an article written by Susanna Patton. I don't know if there are any relation to the general. The first is the bottom line. If you're talking about Biden, what is he about? The Biden administration wants to focus on Southeast Asia.
He's following Obama.
You know, Jeffrey Sachs came up with a commentary. I only saw it the other day. That's saying that it's not even about Ukraine. It's not even about Russia. It's all about China. And so that is why, as early, if you remember, Biden was vice president to Barack Obama, and they have one thing in common: Austin, that black demon, that is now Secretary of Defense.
Right.
Who announced
Okay.
early on the additional sites, as a matter of fact. Yes.
Number 2, according to Lowly Institute, but it lacks a coherent narrative, sabi, or cut-through message. A lack of bilateral meetings with the president clearly rankled some and was notable given Biden has not established rapport with many of his counterparts in the region. There is only one who wants to join him right now, actually. And the offer in May of $150 million
For the
is not
ASEAN.
even attractive. So, number 3, the U.S. Indo-Pacific Economic Framework is not therefore landing well in Southeast Asia. I do not have to mention that Anwar Ibrahim came all the way here to talk to G.I. Joe, Marcos Jr., to tell him that be careful with what you're doing. Number 4, U.S. engagement with Southeast Asia still needs time and attention. And finally, the summit won't shift the dial for the U.S. in Southeast Asia. However, in November of last year, he was able to get from Congress not just $150 million, but $806 million, plus $500 million for use in propaganda, mostly through the National Endowment for Democracy. So he now has 1.3 billion, and that is why all of a sudden, at the start of 2023, all this action, starting with the Philippines and the EDCA bases, had to be the priority.
You know, it's very sad because we're holding on to G.I. Joe's military defense treaty.
Mm.
But you could see, as we discussed last week, we have the world moving into a new economic order.
Yes.
None of these
Correct.
big countries are actually talking about any military build-up.
No.
There was a time in our history, Itos, di ba, na nagkaroon ng usapan na, kailangan, sa SALT, alisin na yung mga nuclear warheads nyo, etc. Because that was dangerous. That was what the whole world was concerned with. Now, what the whole world is concerned with, other than the United States of America, is the economic growth of every country. Well, after the pandemic, after what has happened to all of us affected by 3 years of this, bakit tayo wala na pinapasukan kung paano palalakasin ang ating ekonomiya when you have all of these BRICS countries plus all of the African countries joining in, plus all of the South American countries joining in for an economic,
That is
yeah.
that's the same
Why?
question that
We
China,
don't even
Russia,
have-
and everybody else is asking. Why this is the
Yeah,
Philippines?
exactly.
join
Do we have a trade agreement with America?
Yes, of course.
What kind of a trade
We're a
agreement?
special partner with them.
And then,
That's what it is. They're our number one trading partner ever
Okay.
since. So
so,
that's what
So
we're
far.
tied to so far.
okay.
And they're trying their best not to for us to go to China and Russia to get more from them.
Yeah, but the trade agreement benefit us.
You tell me.
Exactly, because that's exactly what Ado was
That's
saying.
rhetorical.
Nagkaroon tayo,
It's
nagproblema tayo sa agriculture.
Oo.
And production
Hindi
is
lang
most
yun,
important.
Napunta si Galvez at saka si Manalo
Manalo, yeah.
para kausapin ang 2 plus 2 daw eh. 2 plus 2. Pero naging 1 minus 1. Naging military lang ang pinag-usapan at itong mga
Nawala na yung
EDCA.
ating trade.
Tapos yung kanilang joint statement was clearly written by the State Department of the US and all that stuff.
Of course.
Yung agenda natin na ipapasok, yung free trade agreement with the US, alam nyo ba, ang sabi nung special representative na, I think, Chinese-American, Yi yata ang apelido, ang sabi niya, it was not even on the table. Hindi pinapasok, binasura, no? Kaya bumalik itong dalawa, no? Bumalik itong dalawa at nakita nila na medyo, teka muna, tumagilid yata, na wala ng liberahe. Kaya ang ginawa ni Manalo, bago pa man umuwi dito, inimbita niya ngayon itong bagong Minister of Foreign Affairs ng China, no?
Yeah.
Si Gan, Chang'an, something like that. Bago kasi pangalan hindi pa ako sanay. Na pumunta dito. Kaya habang si G.I. Joe Marcos Jr. ay nandoon sa Washington, dito naman mag-uusap ang dalawang Ministers of Foreign Affairs. Ang akin lang dito, ang lakas kasi ng propaganda ng West na pati yung totoong storya na nangyayari sa Ukraine ay hindi na lumalabas sa mainstream media. Ano ba talaga nangyari sa Ukraine? Nananalo ba talaga ang NATO? Nananalo ba talaga ang US doon? Ha? Alam nyo, ang sanction ng US at ng NATO allies on Russia following Russia's intrusion into Ukraine, the most severe, grabe, ever imposed on a country, were meant to teach Moscow the lesson that aggression does not pay. Pero ano ang nangyari? Ano ang nangyari? Did it bring Russia to its knees? Instead, it's the Western economies that are now reeling. Their economic growth all but stopped, and many of them simultaneously suffering from both high inflation and energy shortages for the meantime. Kaya nga tama yung weight na binibigay ni ito sa BRICS. Russia is not only surviving and thriving, acquiring more potency and prestige
Lumakas pa ang
throughout
ruble.
Asia, Africa, South America than any time since the collapse of the Soviet Union. And most importantly, the ruble is now the strongest currency in the world.
Correct.
Grabe!
That's right. So again, why are we hitching our wagon
The G.I. Joe.
to G.I. Joe?
Kasi nga, siya yung bida eh.
This is the world that they're building already, and we're intentionally looking the other way.
Yeah.
It's sad. It's very sad that we're not. Obviously, everybody who listens to mainstream media, including all of our corporate media here,
Correct.
that are all paid, right? And supported by these same Western organs.
Mafia.
Okay. Now these guys intentionally cover any truth that comes out about Ukraine.
And they come out with the propaganda against China.
It's really propaganda.
Yeah.
It's not anymore news. It's not journalism.
Yeah.
It has never been since even this lockdown. It has never been journalism
It's
anymore.
always been against
It's
China.
propaganda. And like Doc said kanina, what is the National Endowment for Democracy? Who is that? Right? So it's obvious who is leading this charge.
Yeah.
Meantime, Russia, China, and the rest who are not with the mainstream media are just saying, okay, ayaw nyo sa amin? Sige. And they will build their own new economic system. We have the population, we have the industry, we have the real economy,
They have the money.
food, oil, energy, anything that humanity needs to feed its people. Dito lang kami. So they're now getting stronger and stronger and stronger. While Biden, I don't know what he's doing.
In fact, hindi ba alam ni Presidente Marcos Jr. na IMF na nagsasabi that the Russian economy will grow faster than Germany or United Kingdom this year. And next year, it will grow faster than those of the US, Japan, Italy, and much of the rest of the West. And its growth in GDP per capita, sabi ng IMF, International
Sa kanila na yun,
Monetary, kanila na yun, the GDP per capita will exceed that of the advanced economies as a whole.
Right.
It will achieve the lowest debt to GDP ratio among the G20
I believe that.
countries.
Yes. That's even with their slanted measurements already.
Yeah.
So that's not even real yet.
And that is with the sabotage of the Nord Stream.
Yes,
pipe.
which the US
Did.
it came out and it's already obvious that they sabotaged.
Exactly.
They bombed it.
They bombed it.
That's a terrorist act.
Exactly.
And yet Russia is still growing. It's
Kanina sinabi ni Rita, hindi siya naniniwala na China will invade Taiwan. At sabi ko kay Rita, ako rin hindi naniniwala that the US has any capacity to stage any war at this time. You know, nagpakita sila dito sa atin ng mga javelin, ng mga HIMARS. Ano pa yung isa? Ano ang sabi ng New York Times? Ang ganda ng title ng New York Times article. From rockets to ball bearings, Pentagon struggles to feed war machine. Bakit? Raytheon, the company that makes Javelin missile systems, said it would take 5 years at last year's production rates to replace the number of missiles sent to Ukraine in the last 10 months. Etong Stinger missiles, the US sent Ukraine so many Stinger missiles that it would take 13 years of production at recent capacity levels to replace them. Currently, the US produces just over 14,000 of the 155mm ammunition artillery every month. And the Ukrainian forces have previously fired as many rounds in just 48 hours. The Washington Post, hindi lang New York Times, reported last month U.S. officials in January proposed a production increase of 90,000 rounds of this 155 millimeter artillery ammunition each month to keep up with the demand. Ano ang picture sa European countries? Mismo na ang NATO Secretary General si Stoltenberg told reporters that the West today has provided unprecedented support to Ukraine with around 120 billion in military, humanitarian, and financial assistance. But Patricia Adams and Lawrence Solomon said, Germany is down to 2 days of ammunition and is now unable to defend itself. The UK's stockpiles of ammunition would last only a few days in battle. France is facing a major shortage of munitions, and the US military now doubts its ability to both continue to supply Ukraine and maintain its own readiness.
NATO
Ayan.
is already outmoded.
No,
There is no need for it
paano
anymore.
No, and
ba?
but here's the thing. That means because of Biden, and if you listen to the rhetoric of Biden and all the Democrats, they identify Russia and China as the number one enemy. China even more. Okay, so they're going to try to wage. They cannot even wage a war through proxy. It's been revealed that there are American soldiers actually on the ground fighting Russian. Okay, so and they can't even win. Like these reports are saying, we don't have enough ammunition. We cannot supply them enough. Okay, the danger there now. They're going to say they're going to go into Taiwan. They're going to defend Taiwan. So now you have a two-front war, which they cannot even supply. Now, the danger there that I see is they're moving towards, okay, di kung ganon, edi let's launch na. Let's not do small wars. Let's not do certain invasions. Let's launch our missiles.
What good would it do for their economy?
No,
They
it's
can-
not. It's nothing with the economy anymore, Rita. If you know the U.S.,
it's
Biden has
a
already.
hegemon.
They don't care anymore. Biden doesn't care. He would give 120 billion to Ukraine, while America is suffering.
Exactly, and
He
they're giving
doesn't-
so much also to
That-
Taiwan.
But the
Yeah.
danger is if they launch from nuclear,
Oh, that's the
that's
danger.
there because they cannot fight a proxy war. They cannot fight. They cannot put, like they said, they cannot supply. But they have nuclear weapons.
Kaya nga sabi ni Steven Pabalinas, ipakita mo uli yung ating cartoon. Sa EDCA, patay ka.
Yeah.
Kasi wala na talaga eh.
Like I said again, like we said, if the America wants to launch, can we stop them?
And Jeffrey Sachs has just cited na 1,600 warheads na pala ang Russia beyond the 900 mark of the US.
You think if because of their desperation, let's say sabihin nila, okay, let's force Russia to its knees by launching. You think Russia will just stand down? You think China, seeing that, will just stand down? Eh lahat ng EDCA bases naka-configure na yung mga direction nila sa atin.
Exactly.
And the more targets, we're just sitting there saying, okay, make us a target. And if any nuclear, no matter how big or small, hits, let's say, Subic, apektado pa rin naman nila.
Oh, yes.
The whole thing is done.
Definitely.
This is where I start worrying about G.I. Joe. Because when he comes back from
Yes.
Washington, D.C.,
Mm.
by the way, we've started mass action again with Herman Laurel. And we are with Governor Manuel Mamba.
Ang Cagayan.
And hindi ba nangingilabot si Bongbong Marcos na 7,000 ang nag-gather sa Cagayan? Walang hakot yan.
To protest.
Not just to protest. Kung protest lang, okay, itos. To pray.
Wow.
Ibig sabihin, when you pray, Diyos na lang ang nakakaalam. Hindi ba?
Right.
Ipapa-Diyos na lang natin itong si Bonget. No? Dahil mukhang wala sa katinuan. No? wala sa katinuan when it comes to economy, agriculture. My goodness, even the driver's license nagkaroon ng shortage.
Nakakatakot.
And the situation of crime is, oh my goodness, ako mismo naging victim na ng crime against property. No? But what I'm trying to say here is, sino sa loob na nakapaligid sa kanya would shake him to his senses? Sino? Wala pa ako nakikita. Even Abalos is micromanaging the Philippine National Police. My goodness, Remulla is micromanaging the Department of Justice. No, and
Yeah,
itong
he's running after people when the rest of the country is actually, just recently I read, katatapos na ng Ramadan, and then there's another Maguindanaoan that was also ambushed. Somebody connected to the electric department there. So, it's really very sad that criminality has become not only high profile, but you have here, for instance, members of the police force, generals of the armed forces that are actually involved in these high crimes. I mean, sometimes when you read this, now they're having, sinasabi may cover up, sinasabi ganito. And then here you have smuggling of prohibited drugs and all of this. And then you have supposedly sites that are going to defend us from smuggling drugs inside, sana, defend us from criminality, defend us from all of these warlords and so forth. That is the internal security that we need. It is not for the outside. Well, anyway.
Well, you mentioned
G.I.
BARM,
Joe,
Rita, and
yeah.
I'm worried about that because hindi pa lumalabas, no? Ang Sultanate of Sulu is calling for a miswara, a consultation, because the Tausug Nation or the Bangsa Suluk wants to sever from the Bangsa Moro Autonomous
Which is
Region.
understandable because they would not be under a Maguindanaoan or a Maranao.
Yes, and they are now moving with confidence because of the victory of the Sultanate in the French
In the French,
Arbitral
yes,
Court,
yeah.
where they were
Given an
awarded
award,
$14.7 billion by the French Arbitral Tribunal.
Exactly.
So they're going to push
So,
that.
miski saan kaya lumingon, may problema. And yet we are jockeying for this camouflage uniform of the military.
You're jockeying position for a spot at the dinner table in the Titanic. That's what it is. You're fighting for a place in the captain's table.
When
of
you
a
have
sinking
all of
ship.
the other, you have all of the
Nandiyan
other cruise ships actually that are offering, this is a better alternative for all of
come
you,
with us.
so that you can earn something to help your people
Yes.
instead of going where G.I. Joe is, flexing the muscles and trying to prove na sila pa rin ang bida.
Right.
It's more a matter of what? Their pride?
And to be fair, I just want to state, I don't want to see America disintegrate. That's not the objective. The objective,
No
no
country should disappear.
In fact, there should be a lively participation of all
Correct.
countries. And in fact, America, with the right leadership, will join the BRICS.
Should.
Will join this whole Western petrodollar system is done. No more. But to join Russia, China, and lead all the nations into a new Bretton Woods system or financial system, and then build each country according to their desires. That's the ideal.
Exactly. Xi Jinping offered that in Davos 15 years ago when he launched the One Belt, One Road program for the whole world to join in.
Right.
That was the time that America could have partnered with them.
Correct.
But
Well, we have been through 500 years of colonial rule from Magellan, March 21, I think, 1521,
yeah.
something,
Yeah,
March,
1520.
yeah. And so we're just over 500 years. And according to mythology, I thought it was Bongbong Marcos who would become the new phoenix
Mm.
to
Mm.
usher us out, because
New
every
age.
500 years the old phoenix dies, and from where he
It's reborn.
turns to ashes, from
Mm.
his ashes rises a new phoenix.
Mm.
And I hope I'm still not uh, too late, because I know there are solutions, but they're not within the reach. And I'm waiting, Rita, because it's May. There are a lot of people who lost in the elections, but are good materials. I want to see Harry Roque there become the Secretary of Foreign Affairs. I want to see Gibo Teodoro there become the Secretary of Defense, and not these warmongers. I want to see Cito Lorenzo come out to be the Secretary of Agriculture. There are so many people uh, in the back burner that we can make that bench of the president really not only wide but deep.
Yes.
But they really have to open up the governance. They cannot confine ruling this country to a single family. Excuse me, no, if I am hitting somebody here, but I will not mention the name anymore. It can no longer be. No, the sign to cooperate with the yellows should be tempered, because we're even hearing a familiar name, Mar Rojas, the epitome of everything that is failure in being former Secretary of Trade, in being former Secretary of Transportation and Communication,
Right.
and even meddling with Metro Manila traffic.
Mm.
And finally, his worst was
Mm.
being the Secretary of Interior and
Yeah.
Local Government. And rumors have it, I'm identifying it properly, that they want Mar Rojas in the midst of that cabinet. Excuse me.
We'll be
Huh?
sliding down backwards faster than.
Oh dear, we're
but, go
approaching just about a year of Junior's administration. And already we are faced with a world that is moving the other way,
Mm.
where we are not part of. We're talking about the BRICS. We're talking about the need to enter into this new economic order and to get away from GI Joe
Mm.
and the flexing of the muscles
Correct.
and all of this, because that is the fact, and the fiction is we should not follow that particular line. So
Mm.
we are here in Crossfire to bring this to the attention of our people, so that you can understand what is going on, so that you can be able to appreciate where the leadership is going, to respect it, to honor it, and to pray, as Mamba's people were praying, that a miracle could still happen. So perhaps in this voyage that our junior will be meeting with the President of the United States of America, there could be a turning point yet. So let us pray for that, because as Ado was showing, the danger there for a nuclear war is just at our doorstep.
I hope that how he has placed himself between China and the US would be repositioned, so that he places the US between himself and the Constitution and the laws of this land.
Correct.
We intend, our group intend to question once again, in the midst of all these new sites for EDCA, the constitutionality of these military agreements that we have with the United States, including the mother treaty, the Mutual Defense Treaty,
Mm.
which was as old as my father, 1951.
Right. Correct.
A little. I'm only 4 years older than so.
Correct.
We hope that a good sense this time
Yeah.
will come. We've always been attacking China for that nine dash line, but we ourselves, our senators, our congressmen, have been quiet about our own gross violation of
The
our
Constitution.
Constitution. There was recently, I forgot his name, an American senator. You know what he said? The Constitution is not meant to regulate the behavior of the citizens of the country. The Constitution is meant to regulate the conduct of the government.
You're here. Okay.
Okay, so that has been Crossfire. Do we still have some of those who joined us? Yes. Ado.
Indira, hello po sa inyo. Mabuhay kayo sa pagsasabi ng totoo. Neth Veges, gandang hapon po. Freddy Oredina, of course, present. What happened to Chai Ing-wen of Taiwan's visit to the U.S., BBM to visit also? The Gamo death took too long in MSM and only one death. How about Pinoy's lingering to poverty and the death of hunger due, example, smuggling? EDCA problem and oligarchs managing our public utilities. Marami pong issues si Freddy Oredina. Conversion sa Long Kong. Good afternoon po. Good afternoon, Crossfire. Welcome back, Kaado, from Miss Antrope. Nice to see
Miss
Sir
Antrope.
Itos, Madam Rita as well. Carol Villanueva, good morning. Miss Idol Rita, Mr. Ado, and Mr. Idos listening from Pacific Northwest, USA. Kiara Dizan, watching from Cavite. By the way, that is now within the reach of Dongfeng Missiles 31A, yung Seattle. All right. Watching, Kiara Dizan, watching from Cavite. Ivan Riz pa rin Kiloy. Hello po, watching from UK. Maite Baisa, ES. Hola, Madam Rita. Hola po, Sir Ado and Sir Itos Valdes. Ano ito? 3-3 forever. Magandang araw po, Ma'am Rita, Sir Ado and Sir Itos. Loco Choco, we miss Kabuch? Question mark. Kudos to Ma'am Rita, Ado, and Itos. Continue to propagate this information to our fellow Filipinos all the way from UAE. Sabi niya, God bless. Geez, Guys Counter, meron na naman palang pamalit at mas mahusay. Uy, walang ganyanan muna.
Bakit hindi tayo sumama sa BRICS?
Thanks ko, Lord. Akala ko yung Vice President. It's me, Jesse, 9504. Madam, go out. Johnny Ventos, it all seems to happen. The sound system is being manipulated. All right. All right. Magellan cannot change his stand even if he wanted to. More from 3-3 forever. May rumors now na sasama din ang Japan sa BRICS.
How about
Wag
Pilipinas?
ko, medyo malalim yata sila with the US. Joselito Candido Biderio, magandang araw po sa inyo. San Lorenzo Luis Sacramento TV, China not scared about geopolitics. Anong sona ni BBM? Piggyback ng success ay former President PRRD.
Okay, so there you have it. There were many others who've joined us, and we're thanking all of you.
Overtime.
And as we've said, Mamba showed the way, and the people there also has given us the clue. Let us get down on our knees and pray. Because there are many things that are happening now in the world, and let us hope for the best. We wish our President, Junior Marcos, a good trip to the United States of America, meeting with their President, President Biden, and of course, his voyage likewise to the United Kingdom for the coronation of King Charles. And right behind me, you can see there's a black swivel chair. We'd also like to offer our respect and honor to Sir Butch Valdes, who guides us every time we sit together on Crossfire. On behalf of Paglinawan, Itos Valdes, this is Rita Gadi.